Good day all. Today our lesson we're going to be looking at excretion. So what I'll do now is to present a screen, and then from there we can all start with our lesson. So this is our excretion part 2, of which I've already shared it to you. I believe everyone can actually see it. So when it comes to excretion, we have to know that it is a process whereby metabolic waste is going to be eliminated from an organism. So what we're simply saying is that when it comes to the excretion, right, this is the removal of the nitrogenous, of the metabolic waste, or we can call it the nitrogenous waste. So what happens is that when it comes to our bodies, they can actually take any um any product, if we may put it like that, to a certain extent, but too much of everything in our bodies can actually harm it or can actually lead to serious complications. For example, we actually need water. We all know that we need water in our bodies because water is also contributing to us having enough amount of blood. But again, if we're going to have excess amount of water, it simply means that excess amount of water is also going to affect so many things within our bodies. First of all, it can also affect how we lose water in our bodies. That's why we're also supposed to have a normal level of water being available in us so that even if our bodies have to go through homeostasis, they can still be able to fully function. So, when it comes to excretion, there are so many organs that are going to be working together or working hand in hand in order to make sure that products or nitrogenous waste or metabolic waste is actually removed from our bodies. So we've got lungs, we've got kidneys, we've got skin, we also have got liver, we also have got a colon. So all those things, they actually work together in order for them to remove the metabolic waste in our bodies. So one thing I don't want you to mistake is excretion and secretion are different. Right. So when it comes to excretion, this is when we are removing, this is when we are eliminating a particular waste out of your body. But when it comes to secretion, right, anything that is secreted, it can still be used later in the body, or it can still be useful in the body. For example, when it comes to salivary glands, right? We say salivary glands are going to secrete what? They're going to secrete saliva, which we actually use it to make sure that our mouth is always moisturized. We also look at another one. We've got sweat, right? So sweat acts as both as excretion, and it's also going to act as both a secretion. Reason why we say it can be a secretion so that it can actually cool down the body, right, during the homeostasis. But it can also be excreted because it is carrying the what? The metabolic waste. So what happens is that we have what are called the nitrogenous waste, and we also have what are called the non-nitrogenous waste. So it's also important for you to know the difference between the two. So if you're looking at your nitrogenous waste, the example that we can give is urea, right? That is a nitrogenous waste. But when it comes to a non-nitrogenous waste, which is something that still has to be eliminated out of your body, if it becomes too much, you can look at your drugs. There are times whereby we take medication, right? But that medication is not supposed to be in our blood system for a very long time. So at the end of the day, it can get what? Excreted. We also have got water, for example. Water is something that we have already said that we need in our bodies, but too much of it can also cause damage. That's why it's going to be what? And it's going to be excreted. And then we can also look at alcohol. If someone has a high intake of alcohol, right, at the end of the day, what happens is that your liver, it gets affected. Therefore, your alcohol is to be what? Have to be eliminated. So you have to understand what excretion is and what secretion is. And you also have to know the different types of nitrogenous waste as well as the non-nitrogenous waste. So from now onwards, we're going to start looking at the different organs that are responsible for eliminating the waste from our body. So the first one that we have there is the liver. So if we're looking at the liver, right, I did mention there that liver is not an excretory organ. So what we're simply saying is that a liver does not directly excrete all the nitrogenous waste. But what we're simply saying is that when it comes to the liver, right, the liver can actually break down compounds which are known as nucleic acids. Then your nucleic acids are going to be broken down into ammonia, of which the ammonia is the one that actually produces or allows the formation of urea. So when it comes to the liver, right, it actually excretes the waste, not directly so, but it actually uses other organs in order for it to be able to what to remove all the nitrogenous waste that it has. So what happens is that at times as individual you might have too much of alcohol, like we have already said. So if you've got excess amount of alcohol being found in your liver, what normally happens is that your liver is going to get damaged, and the damage because of alcohol, we call it the liver cirrhosis, of which we are still going to learn about it more in detail. Then the second one that we have there, second excretion that we have is called the what? The kidneys, right? So remember we said when it comes to the liver, it is not an excretory organ, but it is an organ that can produce the nitrogenous waste, but its nitrogenous waste that is produced, it is not secreted, it is not excreted by it, but it is going to be excreted somewhere else. So now if we're looking at the kidney, right? The kidney is the organ that is responsible for excreting all the nitrogenous waste that will have been produced by the what? By the liver. So for example, you've got your kidney, right? So in kidneys, we've got your urea, right? We all know that when it comes to the kidney, it's going to consist of the distal convoluted tubule, which is going to be responsible for excreting what? The urea, which is going to leave the body in a form of what? In the form of urine. So that is how your kidney is going to be what? To be responsible for excreting all the other nitrogenous waste that we do not need, and those nitrogenous waste will have been produced from where? From your liver. So it is important for you to remember that a liver is not an excretory organ, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't excrete the nitrogenous waste. So all the nitrogenous waste that get excreted in the liver, it is going to leave the liver and it's going to be excreted somewhere else. For example, we gave an example of what? Of urea. And then we move on to the kidneys. We see it when it comes to the kidneys, right? It is responsible for excreting all the waste that is actually formed in the liver. For example, we gave an example of what? Of urea. I hope you all understand that. And then we've got the lungs, right? So when it comes to the lungs, they actually responsible for excretion of what? Of carbon dioxide. Why are we saying carbon dioxide is excreted and it is not secreted? It's because anything that is excreted simple means it can not be used in the body. So if we're looking at the lungs, right, they excrete carbon dioxide. Reason being, us as human beings, we do not need to use oxygen, right? But what do we actually need? We actually need to use what? More oxygen. That is why carbon dioxide is going to be excreted. So when it comes to the carbon dioxide, it is excreted when we exhale or when we breathe out. So exhalation and breathing out is one and the same thing. So when you breathe out, that is the only time you get to excrete your what? Your carbon dioxide. Then the next organ that we have there is known as the skin, right? So when it comes to the skin, it's going to excrete different mechanisms. For example, you're going to have water, which is a compound that is going to be excreted. You're going to have your salts, and you're also going to have your urea. So, what happens, we've already said that when it comes to the salts, one thing about the salts is that they are not going to be directly released out of the body, but your salts and water they work hand in hand. When you get to grade 12, you are going to learn about two hormones, right? The first hormone is called the antidiuretic hormone. When it comes to the antidiuretic hormone, this is a hormone that is responsible for making sure that your body has got adequate amount of water. Where else, when it comes to the salts, you've got a hormone which is called the aldosterone, which regulates the amount of salt that is available in the body. But remember, guys, one thing is that when we're losing salt in our bodies, it is impossible for us to actually see salt being excreted out of our bodies, but our salt is going to be excreted in the presence of water. That's why if you look at sweat, the sweat is actually salty. You look at urine, the urine is also salty. Why? Because this is how your salts are going to be excreted or they're going to be released out of the body. And we already said, just a reminder, that when it comes to the sweat, right, sweat is not only regarded as an excretion, but we said it is also going to be regarded as a secretion because it is still going to be used afterwards. So whenever you are sweating, guys, or after sweating, what happens is that your body cools down, which simply means that sweat that we have already excreted, we are still gonna use it again to cool down our bodies. That's why we're simply saying your sweat is going to act as a what? It is going to act as secretion, and also at the same time is going to act as a excretion. And then we have the colon, which is the last one that I'm going to look at. So when it comes to the colon, it is responsible for excreting the cholesterol as well as the bile that is going to be formed in the liver. So this all comes down. Going back to the liver, we did say, guys, that the liver is not an excretory organ, but it is going to use another organ in order for it to excrete its nitrogenous waste. So looking at this one, you can now see that the liver can either use the kidneys or it can either use the colon in order for it to excrete whatsoever nitrogenous waste that it has, nitrogenous waste that it will have produced. So this is where our lesson will end today, and it is very important for you to remember how and how many organs do we have that are responsible for the excretion, and you also have to know how to explain them in detail on how they excrete those particular products, and also where do they excrete them to, and you also have to know what type of nitrogenous waste is produced by each and every part of the body or every organ that you're going to come across. So when we're meeting again, we are now going to be looking at the kidneys in detail on how they actually adapted for its excretions. So let's meet again in our next lesson. Bye.